Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Lisa. Love your channel. This is an incredible duo, both musicians self-taught and unconventional in their playing and songwriting. They've played music together since high school and have that psychic connection that comes with a lifelong musical partnership. So let's dive into this. The band is called Hella. The track we're going to be listening to is Osaka off of the Tripper album. Let's dive into it. So we got pedal tones off to the right, melody on the left. Dude, these drum patterns are disgusting. Dude, those tom rolls are precise. Kinda trippy. Dang, talk about an energetic track. Golly. We're done, right? Dang, there's still 6 more seconds. Okay. As y'all know, I don't like to quit early. Who knows, right? You got 10 seconds there at the end of a track. Who knows what's going to go on there? You could have two notes in the last second. You know, I don't know that it'll be super important to the analysis, but I ain't gonna miss it. I want to talk about that ending real quick because it was a really odd time signature. And it can be felt a few different ways. You may have noticed I was counting, trying to figure it out, and I ended up with a faster 5. And that seemed to work for me really well. And I got into this groove of the 5, but then we have every few bars we have the da 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 da, and then it goes back into that groove. Well, that's ba da ba ba da ba ba da ba. If you count that, we have 3 beats. If we count just the first note, the highest note before the descent of each line. Honestly, if you take that 3 and you stick with it, you actually get a slower 3 that works for the rest of it as well. So I was like, maybe it is in 3/4, not in 5/4. Um, but honestly, the 3 feels really weird in the regular riff. It feels really good in that transition riff, but not in the regular one. And so I would probably transcribe it in 3 just to keep a single time signature, but I mean, I think it's really difficult to feel the main one in 3. And so it makes an interesting, question, especially when you look into their purpose as both a composer and a musician playing their own works. How do they feel it? Do they feel it as a series of 5s and then a 3? Do they feel 3 all the way through? The 3 doesn't really work with that faster driving beat in the drums. That's very solidly a 5. Um, and so it kind of makes me question how they feel it. Are they counting at all? This was Lisa, right? Yeah, as Lisa stated, that they're self-taught musicians. So it could be that they don't have a traditional education, a formal education in music theory and composition, and they don't count music at all. It's all about feel and muscle memory. We play this fast and then we slow it down a little bit. And then we play it fast and we slow it down a little bit. And that brings interesting things into transposition as an outsider to both the performance of it and the composition of it. How would I go about putting that in music, sheet music, tablature? How would I go about writing this down? These are interesting problems that transcribers run into all the time, is trying to find the way that would transcribe what your views on the composer's intentions are, while also making it easy to read for anybody who would be picking it up wanting to learn the piece. I do not envy transcribers' jobs for more complex rhythmic stuff like this, because it can get pretty gnarly. So what's going on in this song? It's a lot. I couldn't tell if we had 1 or 2 guitars though. Let me start with that. How many people are playing here? There's at least 1 drummer. I don't think I heard anything that would require a second pair of hands or a second person on a drum kit. But the drums are exceptionally busy all the time. If this is 1 dude, they are just tearing it up. I can't even begin to imagine how exhausted they are after playing a set of this stuff. But the guitars, the thing is that sometimes it feels like there's 2 guitars, and at other times it feels like there's 1. And when it comes to bands, very rarely is there somebody who plays occasionally. This is something I've talked about in the past, but for the most part, when you have something rock oriented or rock adjacent, everybody plays all the time, except for, a rare ballad section, um, where maybe you have just a piano or just a solo guitar with your vocalist and your drums might come in later. Right, we have some drumless places. Sometimes you allow the bass to play by itself to introduce a section and then the guitars come on top of it. But I mean, these are massive sections to this track that just sees only one guitar line rather than two. So, I mean, my I guess it makes sense. It's probably just backing track then, yeah. Uh, in the studio, you record both lines. When you play live, you got one in the background or something playing on the speaker system. That makes sense to me, anyways. Yeah, there's probably just one guitarist and one drummer. That's probably it right here. All right, so I think we've passed on that question. Um, so the guitar work is melodically noisy. We can go with that. There's a lot of polyrhythms going on, both within the drums themselves and with the way that the guitar's lines play off of what the drums are doing rhythmically. Um, and so we get some really, I mean, even there at the end, right? That I was just talking about. Is it three? Is it five? There's polyrhythmic ideas there, and it's present um, both, like I said, within the drums themselves and also within the grouping of the two. What are the rhythms of the guitar playing? Are they the same rhythmic patterns as the drums? Are we introducing different rhythms here? Um, the guitarist also has a lot of looping, destructive sounds, I guess we can call them. A lot of the riffs are 1 to 2 bars long with a lot of heavy repetition to them, playing around with accent patterns to create interesting polymetric ideas against the beat that the drums are laying down. I don't know. There's a lot of chaos going on, but it's super controlled. Like I wouldn't walk away from this and say that it feels random by any means. It's just a very eclectic and energetic track. And a lot of that comes from the rhythmic structure, but also from the speed and the repetition of it all. Like I mentioned, the guitars tend to pick a line and play it over and over and over and over, and sometimes it runs against the core pulse of the song in a way that creates a rhythmic juxtaposition on subsequent playings of the riff. And so what we kind of walk away from here is something that doesn't have a strong, how do I say this tonight? It doesn't have a strong melodic center. A lot of it is rhythmically and texturally based, but that doesn't mean that it's lacking riffs. And I think that's the important part I want to focus on there, is that there's no real key melody through a lot of this. But that doesn't mean it lacks pitch-based movement. And I think I'm gonna need another listen to this to really get a strong grasp on it. The guitar work is just bonkers. Let me talk about the drums for a second. I got a little bit of a stronger grasp on them. Polyrhythms, all over the place. We have polyrhythms within sections. We have polyrhythms against the guitar, like I already said. The drummer has 4 limbs, and all of them can be different polymetric ideas if they want to. It's just a lot of a lot. But see, here's the thing where it kind of separates a little bit from other polyrhythmic drummers, like Matt Gartzka or Danny. Why can't I remember his last name? Danny from Tool. That's a full name, right? um, is that they tend to use polyrhythm to find an underlying groove. And to, so, well, what it is that they use polyrhythms in a way that is palatable in a process that I call complexity through simplicity, in that it sounds really simple what they're doing, but if you're a drummer or if you're a theorist and you start digging into what's happening, you realize how much concentration is required to do what they're doing. It's rhythmically complex, but listenably, it's exceptionally palatable. Matt Garska tends to push a little bit more towards the complexity side. I think it's easier to recognize the complexity in his work, but there's still an underlying groove that you can find when you listen to his drumming. But when it comes to this, there is a ton of complexity everywhere, and it's not necessarily to find groove, it's more of to play the drums melodically. In fact, there really isn't a lot of groove or metronomic style playing coming out of the drumming here. They're the second melodic instrument in this duo. And so we get lines that don't really help the guitar rhythmically. They don't really help the listener rhythmically. They don't provide the bassline pulse. But what they do is play a second line of music, which I love. I'm a huge fan of melodic drumming. But this takes it up to the next level where it is consistently and constantly technical. It is jaw dropping to listen to, and then you realize 3 minutes into the track, and this dude has started doing constant 16th note drumming across 6 or 7 drums and hasn't stopped for 40 or 50 seconds here and hasn't become less precise. The attack velocity hasn't changed at all. It's been this rigid roboticness. It's so clean and precisely performed that you start thinking about muscles and endurance, and it's just bonkers that there is both this physical element of performance going on, but also the mental one, because alongside just being fast and technical, it's also polyrhythmic. And having to associate each of the limbs with a different polymeter while also still just blazing across this kit for such a long time. It is just jaw dropping. It really is. And the fact that none of it really falls into these tight 4-beat rhythmic patterns either, that it feels like linear melody writing. Aside from the 16th note drumming that I was talking about just there, which was on a tighter, like 2-bar loop, I think it was, a lot of the other drumming parts just feel linear. There's no loop, there's no pattern. It's a drum solo, not a drum pattern. And that it's being played as counterpoint in some ways to what the guitar is doing as well, or maybe even the lead melody against the guitar's riffs. Ooh, is that what's happening? Because I mentioned that the guitar does melodic things but isn't being the lead melody. A lot of what the guitar does is these short 1-bar riffs. The drums have the longer linear writing. That's it, isn't it? Oh man, that is good. And the drums are also keeping their own rhythm, while the guitars are providing a counter rhythm to it. And yeah, so we have 2 people doing the work of 4 or 5 and allowing the drums to play lead. It is exceptionally unconventional. It is jaw dropping from a performance side, but it's also ridiculous to think about from a logistical side of having to actually write this down and figure out who's doing what and how things should work. Um, yeah, it just completely changed my I mean, I already viewed them pretty highly, but if this is what they've done, then that's just bonkers. And the thing is too, so if this is a band who wants to prove themselves on doing with just the two of them what other bands would do with more personnel. Is it possible they don't have a backing track? This didn't even cross my mind until just now. But the drummer is a master drummer. What if our guitarist is a master guitarist? What if they're like John Gom and they can play like 4 different lines on their guitar? Well, in this case, I only heard 2 at a time. That's not impossible. If you do two-hand style on the neck, I mean, there were definitely some parts in here I think that were strummed. Were they accompanied by a second guitar part or not? Because some parts I can hear you could probably accomplish them through double tapping. Were those the parts that were polyrhythmic within the guitar section itself, though? I don't see. I gotta go back and listen to it now. It might be possible that both of these instrumentalists are they're polymetric masters, as well as just being exceptionally good on their instruments to perform so many different lines simultaneously. I gotta look this. I gotta look this up. I gotta look this up. I mean, I don't have lyrics to look up anyways, so you guys can sit with me for a second. United States math rock band from Sacramento, California. The primary members are Spencer Syme on electric guitar and Zach Hill on drums. The band expanded their live band and have Derek Elkin on vocals, rhythm guitar, sampler, and synthesizer, and Jonathan Hischke on synth bass for their 2005 tour, and in 2006 they reformed as a 5-piece lineup. So what lineup was this? Did this have the full 5-piece to it? Even just a 3-piece? Having Dan on rhythm guitar would be a massive help to some of this stuff. So this was their latest album. Do I got a personnel list? I don't. Wait a second. Didn't we already have this information? Yeah, Lisa said it's an incredible duo. And see right here, it's the 5th most recent album that features drummer and guitarist. That's it. Okay. Interestingly, Zach Hill, the drummer here, is the drummer for Death Grips now. So their first album was in 2012, Death Grips. They did have a 2011 EP, and Hella's last album was Tripper in 2011. So yeah, this was their last one. It's just the 2 of them. Golly. Yeah, that is wild. I don't see anything about backing tracks, but Saeem frequently utilizes polyrhythms and double tapping while playing, often giving the illusion that 2 guitars are playing at once. While Hill's drumming style is very hectic and naturally flowing, with continuously changing drum kit setups. Yeah, 2 people with no backing track is how I'm understanding this. Jeez. And self-taught too. Wow. That sums it up. Wow. Those are my thoughts on Hella's Osaka. What did you think of this track? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said? Correct me on, give me your own perspective on. I don't know. Let me know. This has blew my mind. Put that stuff in the comments, above the comments, in the description box. Link tree button takes you here. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to continue on with our post-rock week, and we'll do a special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.